Previously on World History and Geography.
With the agricultural revolution about 10,000 years ago, people began to settle in large, organized communities. Some of these communities became centers of trade and developed into cities with a more complex way of life, or civilization. Over 5,000 years ago, the first civilizations arose next to rivers in the areas of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and India. The last of the first early civilizations began in China.
中国
中国
And now, our feature presentation.
When people from the West think of China, they often think of this, or this, or even this. Well, we're going to focus on China's long and rich history.
Made it to China!
Ancient China was somewhat isolated from all other civilizations due to many natural barriers, like the Pacific Ocean to the east, while harsh deserts and tall mountain ranges and plateaus cut off much of the rest of China. Two major river systems flow from the mountainous west to the Pacific Ocean. The first is the Yangtze in central China. The second is to the north, the Huanghe.
黄河
The Huanghe, known as the Yellow River because of the yellow silt it carries called Los. Is it just me or should it be called the Orange River? Anyway, the rivers provided the fertile soil and water for China's earliest settlements. Only about 10% of China's land is suitable for farming, with most of the fertile land being located between the Yangtze and the Huanghe. This heartland of China was the location of China's first cities around 4,000 years ago. Predating the first cities is the Chinese calendar, which began over 4,700 years ago. The Chinese calendar uses the sun and the moon to work out months and years which vary in length. Most Chinese use the modern Gregorian calendar used throughout the world, and only use the Chinese calendar for holidays. The most important Chinese holiday is the Chinese New Year. The Chinese New Year date shifts from year to year due to the leap months and the varying number of days each year in the calendar. The Chinese zodiac has an animal assigned to each year in the Chinese calendar.
属相
Either a rat, an ox, a tiger, a hare, or is it a rabbit? A dragon, a snake, a horse, a goat, or a ram, or a sheep, or something like that. A monkey, a rooster, a dog, or a boar, or is it a pig? Your zodiac animal is supposed to illustrate your personal characteristics. Hey, I'm a horse. Maybe that's why I'm a brony. From these early cities, according to legend, China's first dynasty emerged about 4,000 years ago, where a single family ruled over generations. It is believed the Shia dynasty's flood control and irrigation projects reflected a high level of technology, but we don't know much about this time in China since they did not leave written records. A people called the Shang rose to power in northern China, and the resulting Shang Dynasty lasted from about 1700 BCE to 1027 BCE. The Shang were the first Chinese rulers to leave written records, so we know more about them. The Shang surrounded their wooden cities with massive earthen walls for protection due to constant warfare. The use of city walls would continue to be a major part of Chinese culture and identity.
长城
The Chinese viewed anyone living outside their civilization as barbarians. The Chinese saw themselves as the center of the civilized world, and the name for themselves was the Middle Kingdom. No, not the Lord of the Rings' Middle Earth, the Middle Kingdom. Shang society was divided into land-owning nobles who governed the villages and the peasants.
家
Family was the center of Chinese society, and they believed that the spirits of family ancestors had the power to bring good fortune or disaster to living family members. Through the spirits of these ancestors, the Shang consulted their gods using oracle bones, animal bones and tortoise shells in which priests scratched questions for the gods. The priest would then apply a hot poker to it, causing cracks that the priest would interpret as the god's answer or messages from their ancestors. Since some of the oracle bones still exist, we can see examples of the ancient Chinese writing system, where each character usually stands for one unit of language, not sounds of a spoken language like we're used to in English.
Jam.
This meant that all people in China could learn the same writing system, even if they spoke a different language. This helped unify the many people in China. The problem with the writing system was the enormous number of written characters to be memorized.
汉字
Some of the characters were easy to remember since they were simplified drawings of an object, but a person needed to know over 1,500 characters to be barely literate. This limited the number of literate, educated Chinese. Around 1027 BCE, a people called the Zhou overthrew the Shang and established their own dynasty, which lasted until 256 BCE. To justify their conquest, the Zhou leaders declared the Shang king had been such a poor ruler that the gods had taken away the Shang's power and given it to the Zhou. This justification eventually became known as the Mandate of Heaven, where royal authority was believed to come from the gods, and a poor ruler could lose the mandate and lose the right to rule. This was the Chinese explanation for rebellion, civil war, and the rise of a new dynasty. This pattern of rise and decline and replacement of dynasty is known as the dynastic cycle. Oh yeah, there it is, a cycle. The Zhou controlled a large territory and established a system called feudalism, a political system in which nobles or lords are granted the use of lands that belong to the king in exchange for loyalty and military service. Similar systems would arise centuries later in both Japan and Europe. The Zhou produced many innovations. Roads and canals were built to stimulate trade and agriculture. Blast furnaces produced cast iron that would not be matched in Europe until the Middle Ages and allowed the Zhou to create advanced weapons and tools. The Zhou also helped trade by introducing coin money, although the coins didn't look like what we're used to today. Over time, with increased trade, the villages grew into cities, and the lords grew more powerful. They fought among themselves for wealth and territory. As their power grew, these warlords claimed to be kings in their own territory, which led to the years often called the Time of the Warring States. Amidst the bloodshed of this Warring States period, traditional Chinese values collapsed and were replaced with chaos, arrogance, and defiance. This would lead to a new start of the Chinese dynastic cycle.
中国